We hear the story of Paul's conversion 3 times in the book of Acts. The first time was our very long gospel reading, the incident itself. But then Paul will preach about it, or use this story, his testimony, in his preaching on 2 further occasions in Acts. One time before a baying crowd in Hebrews, and he gives the testimony in Hebrew. And then later, before Agrippa, he will defend himself again by giving his testimony, explaining what happened on the road to Damascus. And this time, presumably, he gave that testimony in Greek. So we hear the story 3 times. Once for Paul, once for the Jews, Jerusalem in Hebrew, once for the Gentiles in Greek. This tells us 2 things, I think. Firstly, I think it gives us an insight into Paul's preaching. The fact that the same story appears 3 times in the Acts of the Apostles suggests that actually this was something that was characteristic of Paul's presentation of the gospel. That when he preached, he used this personal encounter with Christ a lot in his proclamation of the good news, his proclamation of Christ. Secondly, it shows us that this story is universally applicable and universally relevant because it's offered 3 times. Once for Paul, once for the Jewish people, once for the Gentile people. Perhaps we could say once for us, once for the Jews, once for the Gentiles. There's something universally relevant, universally important about St. Paul's conversion and the insight he gained on the road to Damascus. And what is that significance? What is that importance? Well, I wonder if it's this understanding that Paul was given on the road of the intense reality of Christ's union with his church. Our Lord said to him, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" Persecute Christ. To persecute the church is to persecute Christ. Such is the unity between Christ the head and his body, the church, to use an image that Paul will present in chapter 12 of the letter to the Corinthians. And more positively, such is the union between Christ the head and his body, the church. That to be a member of that body, to be united with Christ, is to share his relationship with God. It's to be adopted into God's family as his beloved Son. And that is our salvation. Such is the union between Christ and his church, that he who believes and is baptized will be saved.